You are about to opt in to Monerotopia, a show for the Monero community where all are welcome to join. From noob to maxi, no matter what bags you hold. Just sit back and relax to the sweet sounds of Monero's latest progress. Or if you're feeling inspired, join us on stage. Remember, the only thing that can stop Monero is a false belief that it can be stopped. And if you want to win the revolution faster, we recommend you remove your XMR from all custodial exchanges immediately. Warning, voting accidents are common around here. Don't forget to properly secure your private keys. Monerotopia starts now.
All right. We are live at LibertyCon.
We are live.
In Miami.
Woohoo!
Miami.
In sunny Miami, but it's rainy Miami.
Nah, it's not too bad. Sun keeps peeping out.
Yeah.
We had a good day of sunshine yesterday, right?
Yes, we did.
We hit the beach. We hit Muscle Beach. We were doing some push-ups and some pull-ups.
Nice flexing. we tried to.
You had to get jacked for Miami, you know?
You
got to catch up with the Joneses.
You got to go in the ice tank after so everything shrivels up, and then you're looking real good. You know, give like a pump and then shrivel real quick. Yeah.
Tony, people know Tony, but we got to introduce Travis, man. This first time meeting you in person, and I actually just discovered you. I think it was last week on YouTube. Okay. I just searched Monero to see what the latest hottest video was, and I filtered by most viewed, and you popped up. And I went to your channel. I'm like, this guy, who is this guy? I'm like, I see you've been talking about Monero for
a little bit. Yeah,
quite some time.
Kind of throw it in there, as a sound money. You know, it's on the fringe of sound money. So, but I think it's important that people understand what Monero is, and that and understood what crypto is. I don't think a lot of these people understand what crypto is. So when I first came around crypto, it was at this conference in 2010, 11, Crazy. Definitely 11. 11 is the moment where I was like, all right, so one of the staff members of SFL traded a Bitcoin for a beer. And I was like, wait up, flag on the play, hold on. Because I've got my buddy over here telling me there's 21 million of these things. And I know there's more than 21 million German beers, whatever. So something's not lining up. And they're like, well, Trav, you just buy more. You just load it back on your phone. And it's all, and that was before cold wallets were a thing and things like that. And actually I come into the conference hall this morning and brought my daughter so she could be around some of the OGs that were part of the SFL movement, Students for Liberty. And I saw you interviewing Ross's mom, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's Doug! Doug is here! Monerotopia is here!" And so I waited, and I'm glad we were able to connect. So
yeah, that was super cool that I was able to talk to Ross's mom, and she actually downloaded Cakewell and let us send her some Monero. She was aware of Monero.
Yeah.
And you met Ross, right?
Oh yeah, I met Ross at what we called Snowmageddon. So SFL had this conference, and maybe you guys can put it in the comments if you were there. It was 2009, probably 10. One of those years, it was at American University in Washington D.C. and it just snowed, a snowstorm. And we weren't sure we were going to get in or we were going to be able to get out. And DC,
remember Snowmageddon. I remember that.
DC can't handle snow. They don't have plows and stuff. It's not an area that gets a lot of snow. And they got 12 inches overnight or something crazy. Mm-hmm. And so it was the second or third conference of SFL, really small group. Alexander McCobin, the founder of SFL, had rented out this cool bar. We put all these people on these buses. We took them over to the side of the city, and it was just college kids at this bar talking about libertarian ideas until 3 a.m. It was nuts. And Ross had such a concept of the ideas. He knew, he just knew Rothbard and Mises and Hayek, and he knew how to apply these things. It's one thing to know about the invisible hand and talk about Adam Smith. It's a total another thing to be able to, at the time, none of us knew. But we were like, how do we build an organization that could, if you could put these ideas in your organization, it would just be fire. It would be, in theory, if you could really put free market concepts inside of an incentive system for your stakeholders, employees, etc., you would think something magical would happen. Only guy up to that point that had been doing anything was Charles Koch. And he was running, he still is, the Kochtopus of DC, where they fund all these organizations, and they essentially set the agenda for what these, Americans for Prosperity. Maybe, they've kind of separated now, but Cato, a lot of influence over Cato, a lot of over IHS, a lot of like all these, Koch was a large funder, and he had a book called Science of Success, where he ran his company on free market ideas. He took Hayek and he kind of retroed it. And it wasn't until 2016 where I'm watching the news and like Ross is in it. And I'm like, what's going on here? And we had no idea that Ross has essentially built Silk Road. And in my opinion, at that time, was the most successful entrepreneur in American history as far as the timeline and the value and the revenue and the amount of product that was shipped. It wasn't just illegal drugs. It wasn't just, it was anything. It was an eBay essentially running on Bitcoin, and no one knew who the other people working on the thing were. None of the other devs knew who the other devs were. They had this entire, you can only watch it now in the documentaries to try to understand what's going on. What you find is that he had applied these concepts, and the growth rate was insane. And in my opinion, he created the first DAO, like the first decentralized autonomous organization. And if you look at what the Fed stole from him, Ross was a billionaire in less than an 18-month period of time in today's value, in today's terms.
Oh yeah.
So
he was the first successful entrepreneur of Bitcoin. Yeah.
Oh, he's one of the.
He provided the first use case.
He's one of the most successful American entrepreneurs America has ever produced. His growth rate was just spanking what Rockefeller, what Ford, what Jobs, what Gates. Maybe Gates and him were the only two that really had the same growth rate. If you really look at it, and you can say there's a lot of things there, connectivity, internet, a lot of things helped him. But the fact that no one knew who was working at this organization, no one knew who buyers and sellers, and the fact that this was a major problem, and it was such a problem that they had to can the entire idea in a big kind of way. That's just, it's amazing.
Yeah, I asked Lynn, Ross's mom, a difficult question. I was basically asking her, what advice would she give to, people out there that are also entrepreneurs in crypto, people in Monero land that are also, perhaps working on controversial ideas for their time.
Yeah.
And her response was, and this is coming from a mother whose child is in jail for a double life sentence, was don't break the law. Yeah. And and I totally respect that and understand that. And I can only imagine the what she's going through. But at the same time, it's like, he did it, right? Like, I don't think we regret that he did this. I think it was an amazing thing. He saw an opportunity. He wanted to create a use case for Bitcoin. He wanted to create an idealistic, free and open market. And he put his ethics before, what the letter of the law was, and went ahead and did it.
I don't even think, in fairness to Ross, we were 20, 21. He was a little older than I was. And he was in grad school at some point. When you're that age, we didn't know. We just thought, man, you come to a conference like this and you talk about these ideas, and say, you're not even thinking about the power of the federal government. You're not even thinking about the corruption of the federal government. You're not thinking about like, hey, these people are literally psychopaths and have a huge force on the use of force, a huge monopoly on the use of force. They have all of their people in on all their judges' spots. They have, the idea that you live in a free and open society is hilarious. But when you're a young kid, you're like, oh, we can change things, man. We can do whatever. And the idea, I think, got way ahead. Like, I don't even think he had a concept of how big it would be. And then all of a sudden, he's now running the ship of something that is literally scaling to like an eBay. And it's just like, obviously the feds are going to throw whatever they can throw at it, and they're going to figure it out. It's the U.S. government. And, but the thing is that it wasn't, instead of, it was early days. But if we look at what Ross has accomplished, this is what makes America, America. This is our best hope with what the BRICS nations have going on now and their commodity-backed currency, and the fact that we kick people out of the SWIFT system, which is insane. I would love to hear your opinion as a European on like, what is the U.S. doing, forcing our enemies to get to be friends. Like, what are we doing? Like, we're forcing people off of the US dollar. Like, we stole Russia's bank reserves. Like, are you kidding me? Like, without any due process, we took Russians' yachts because they had a passport from Russia because of an act that their president, who's elected or not elected. Like, what are we doing here? You know, like, Sweden is kicking Russians out, like Russian speaking people out. What's going on? But at the end of this, I think that America looks at what's going on and we go, okay, maybe we have to embrace Web3 and crypto, and maybe America is the place this happens. It could go other places, but maybe America is like where this actually happens. And that's our second wind, if you will. And in which case, I mean, Ross is the, I mean, you go, Doug. I see your wheels going, and it's like, yeah.
I got a lot of things. Yeah. First of all, how did I just find out about you, man? Because I feel
I'm
like
in the comments. If you go through some of these videos, I listen while I drive.
But what do we?
So
what
I don't
do we
comment. But if I'm at a traffic light, I'm like, I gotta get a comment because I know it helps out. Guys, comment below. Hit these videos, like them, share them, send them to your mom. Like, hey, mom, just check this out. This is a good conversation. When you find something value, but comment, it helps.
What's the name of your channel?
OnSiteTrav is my main one.
Definitely check out this guy's channel. And then, Wealth of Knowledge.
And then Light Capital. I just started the Economic Ninja encouraged me to start Light Capital. He's like, dude, just go finance and economics and just crush. Because the OnSiteTrav stuff was like business and excavation and homesteading and stuff like that. So
you've been doing it for years, and then you slowly started talking about crypto stuff.
The repo market happened in September of 19. Robert Kiyosaki was like, whoa, this is huge. Repo market is like if you and I were running Walmart, the companies, and we got short on payroll and we needed cash and we had some UST bills, we go to the Fed. They give us cash overnight. Everyone settles checks. Your employees' checks don't bounce. Everyone's cool. We're cool. No one knows we're basically broke, but we're not broke because we have the assets to loan against. And so this repurchasing market is this pool of money. Well, this thing went negative. And the Fed had to liquidize it with $1 trillion. And this is before anyone had heard of a trillion. This is before 2020. And Robert Kiyosaki's out there going like, hey guys, pay attention. September 19th of 2019, pay attention. And I took all my content and I was like, yo guys, this is not the recession. This is the 80, 90 year debt cycle. There's a lot of, we go down the rabbit hole that, this is Sumitra's coming up. We got the debt jubilee coming. There's a lot of things about to happen. British pounds. This is before it happened. This is before COVID. But I switched all my content at that point. I was like, if people drop off, great. If not, I just went Gary Vee with it. And I was like, dude, this is what I'm about. I've been here since like 2009, 2010. I mean, I was in Liberty House, lived at Liberty House. So we had a place called Liberty House where all the founders, we eventually got evicted, but so we moved to Liberty Manor, which is more upscale. But yeah.
Where was Liberty House?
It was on North Taylor Street, 1710 North Taylor Street, in Arlington, Virginia, off the Orange Line. And it was great. We had this little place that was built in the 80s before the metro stop was there, before the train was there. And everyone would rip down these houses and build these beautiful McMansions, and guys in their 50s with their 30-year-old wives and young children would live there and drive their BMWs. And then there was us. And we had this ratted down, slumlord, landlord house, 9 guys in there, just trying to, $400 a month of rent, and we're just building, SFL as volunteers or employees or, or working at other organizations in DC, and people would travel in and out. It was Liberty House. Everyone, the OGs of SFL know about Liberty House.
How do you feel about the Liberty movement right now? It's
weak, man.
It's weak?
It's weak, dude. It's weak. We're getting snowed, and no one seems to care. So yeah, it's a problem. The mask thing was weird to me. It was like, what's going on? I did some EMT training, and they would always teach you about going into a fire, this, that. And it was just like, these, smoke particles are 100 times bigger than viral particles. And they will tell you, you need to take off any mask that you're wearing, apply your, oxygen. So when they were like, oh, masks are the solution. It's like, are we doing social conditioning?
Right.
I think we're doing social
everybody just complied.
Everyone just rolled with it. And it was like, all right. And so I started diving down the Revolutions podcast and starting to figure that out. And at the end of the day, the math is if 3% of your population decide to get crazy and 20% of your population decide to fund it, game's on, baby. And I think at this point, we're probably in economic hard times have to happen first. Food supply has to get real serious. And then when you hear your soccer moms, and this is key, it's not coming from your 18 to 30-year-old single males. It's not where it's coming from. It's coming from your mother of 2, mother of 3, having a hard time literally affording to feed her children, that's when things get gnarly. When the mothers start to get catty, they are the organizers. They are the moms for liberty. They are the ones that start. And you need to watch these movements because they will rally the men. And I think we're at the very initial phases of that. And so I kind of a pessimistic short-term view, long-term view. I think we're moving to decentralization. I don't think there's any way to hold it back. And I think we're going to have to.
What role do you ultimately see Monero playing in all this?
So Monero's mineable. This is key. Crypto used to be electricity to miner, which would be your computer, like regular Dell, issued work laptop. You would mine 2 or 3 coins for the year. You'd run that thing while you were at work. It would just sit on your desk. Your roommates and you were sharing the electricity. So you're like, whatevs, it's just a laptop. You get 1 or 2 or 3, coins a year, and you're like, oh, this is cool. A couple of kids would have an Xbox, or some nerd would figure it out, and that's how people would trade Bitcoin, in 2011. Then there was Mt. Docs happened later, but this is before Mt. Docs. This is just oh, my friend introduced us to Bitcoin. How much is Bitcoin? $3. Oh, one of the SFLers is over in Germany trading it for a beer, and it's just what's going on? Let's have a real conversation on what's actually happening. This is before Venmo. PayPal's slow at this point. There's no real way to go from phone to phone. So people are like, oh, this is cool. We can swap around Liberty coins. And but then what happened is the algorithm for Bitcoin that keeps Bitcoin going increases difficulty level, which is amazing. It puts a floor underneath Bitcoin, and it makes it a 51% attack on electricity. At some point in time, if you get $5 million Bitcoin, one of the highest values is going to be to mine Bitcoin. And it's going to be competitive. Hash rate's going to be high. Everyone who's quantum computers, it's maybe it just depends. It's important to see what makes gold work. And what makes gold work is what makes Monero work. Gold grows at 2 to 3% a year, supply-wise. And it's important because there are times where gold is found. There's a big gold rush, so there's an oversupply, so therefore the price goes down. So the cost of diesel fuel and labor relative to the gold doesn't incentivize, so they stop producing as much. And on a long-term view, it stops and slows, starts and slows. This is how an economy works. With crypto, it's immediate. And you and I were discussing baseload power, where if you want to start baseload power, we just went through a hurricane. So I have my daughter over here because it's hey, do you want to just go live in normalcy for a moment? Because we have neighbors that don't have roofs at this point. So things are wild over where we're at. But baseload power is a thing. And we need people to come in and provide baseload power. That's when you don't have electricity for a week, it gets pretty real. Your food's gone in 2 days. Electricity knocks a lot of things out. Grocery store's empty. Things get real in 4 days. No showers, no hot water. That stuff gets real quick. And so what makes Monero unique is the fact that it's electricity to crypto to goods and services, completely anonymously, completely privately. Essentially what we're doing is we're trading electricity, and people are going to figure out how to produce electricity. And we're in a time where electricity and energy are the base unit of society. It is life. Doomberg talks about this all the time. It's electricity is life, or energy is life. We're at a spot where the world wants to have this weirdness towards I don't even know how to describe what's going on in energy right now. Mm-hmm. But I know that adjusted for fiat dollars, adjusted for the fact that we're not investing in supply, adjusted for the fact that demand is rising, there's 1.2 billion people alive today that don't have access to affordable electricity. So the people that purchase coffee or produce the coffee from Monero Talks, and you guys should support that and buy some coffee and buy some coffee, dudes. Just buy some.
Buy some coffee.
And so what's happening there is essentially we're moving to okay, what's value and how do we exchange value? And electricity is a good option. Metal's a good option. I sell metals as a broker for metals. I believe in it. It's good, really good option for I've built some wealth and I want to protect it. Buy some gold, man. It's good. It's be volatile, but you can pretty much count on it, man. You can loan against it. It's like real estate. But Monero functions the exact same way. And it's brilliant in the fact that there's an admissions on it, where it's just there's always going to be 400,000 or come to mark 384,000 a year Monero coming.
Oh, the amount per year.
Yeah,
what
the
does it add
emissions
up
burn.
to?
The emissions burn.
Yeah, per year. I don't know.
There's 18.4 million total.
Monero every year.
Yeah, and so essentially what we're doing is we're figuring out, okay, electricity is going to be a thing for people that maybe produce the coffee for this show. Maybe it makes sense for us to go, especially now that I know you're a civil engineer, like, dude, we need to go build some decentralized power and start powering up some villages and start comparing and being like, does it make more sense at this point in time with the grid hour time to sell it to the village on kilowatt hours, to pump it to the main grid for fiat dollars and have those, the major electricity generator, just wire us money, because that's how it works when you own solar, or do we just store it in mined crypto and just hold it right now until we want to buy something through the internet or wherever, and then we exchange it that way? So we don't need transmission lines. We're exchanging electricity another way. But the answer is, let's get these 1.2 billion people that don't have electricity, plus the Germans, like, let's get them some electricity. Like, and so I think that the way that this is going to work is that's what we're going to move to trading as an actual commodity. It's a speculation, but Buckminster Fuller, famous professor who taught Max Kaiser, and Robert Kiyosaki, is one of their mentors and teachers. He's since passed, but he essentially is famous for saying, like, that will be a progression of mankind. That will be part of the ascent of man, was we will trade energy as our base unit. And gold has been that for us for several thousand years. And if you look at gold and you're like, oh, well, the US dollar is not energy backed right now. Like, no, every currency is energy backed. It's the petrodollar. It's energy backed. And it's still actually backed by gold, or was. If you, Luke Groman has a lot on this, but if you look at the price of oil in gold terms, 10 to 15 golden dollars, like gold, would buy you a barrel of oil, from 74 to 2022 until the invasion of Ukraine. And then at that point in time, it breaks to 18 to the upside. I think at this point it's beyond that in gold terms. So we've essentially broken the energy market. So now you're seeing the DXY rocket to the moon. All these other nations, one, they don't have enough dollars, which is crazy. Debt-based system is like, you always have to keep putting debt out. And then two, these countries can't even afford energy input. So they can't afford the appreciating cost of the dollar. And then on top of that, the appreciating cost of energy. And this is a clown show. And so the answer is, like, you guys watching, energy is life. And I think that's the biggest opportunity is energy and food. And I think that they go hand in hand, and somehow or another, it's a little, we gotta grease the wheels. It's not totally an oiled idea, but I think that we're going to trade electricity if we're going to have a globalized society moving forward ish. Yeah.
Before we spoke a lot about, before we even turned the video on here, you had a lot to say. You have a lot to say, man. It's all really good stuff. Yeah. It's all, I'm impressed. Yeah. I'm impressed. Yeah. But Bitcoin, you're talking about Bitcoin as potentially kind of, replacing the bond, right? Yeah. The bond market, right? It's being, but do you think, because Bitcoin, lacks fungibility, lacks the ability to be digital cash, that it loses its base value? Like what is it riding on, but other than speculation at that point, if it's not really usable as digital cash? Like what's your take on that? How do you view that?
My take is, one, it was digital cash. In 2012, 13, 14, we were trading this thing as digital cash throughout, for goods and services. And people just load up more and go to, whatever exchange and load it up. Yes, it has a fungibility problem. I see that as an awesome thing and a bad thing. So in the awesome thing, what's interesting to me using these third-party apps recently is I've been using Venmo. A lot of my customers want to pay in Venmo. So I'm like, all right, we'll take some Venmo. It's a gray area. The IRS is not going to love it, but whatever. We'll take Venmo. Why not? And so, they have crypto options, pay this way, that way. You go in Venmo and it's like a news feed of all your friends. And it's like, oh, so-and-so paid so for date night and this and that. And you're like, are you guys for real right now? Like, I know that you paid your roommate for whatever, like, and it's like all public. I got my transactions on private because, like, I view that as like a cool thing. I'm pretty public about money. I talk about money. Money in my household was never like a negative. It was always like, let's talk about money. But like, now it's like, are we talking about currency? We're talking about money. These are two different things. But people seem to be public with it. So it's like, maybe I'm wrong. And that, like, now we live in an open society and no one cares. So here's where it'd be cool. My local government, we're putting in a new road. I want to know what we're spending. Bitcoin's awesome for that. Who's spending it? Where's it going?
Right.
What contractors are getting what? This is awesome. Like, this is cool. Fungibility problem? Yes, unless you have the blessing of the priest, and the state is the priest. And so, these coins are clean. These coins are dirty. Okay, so there's a way to incorporate the state, and we might need that gateway in. But once we get the Trojan horse in the gate, people have secrets. People are dark. People have things that they're uncomfortable with. People have a lack. They don't want to know how much, how much do I have? How much do I not have? It's embarrassing, right? And so privacy makes a lot of sense, but also on-ramps. Because if your on-ramp right now is Coinbase, and all of a sudden you're a Canadian trucker, your on-ramp's not Coinbase, baby. And so what are you going to trade your generator fuel for Bitcoin? In theory, you could if you have the infrastructure and you can compete with the right hash rate. But really, you're going to probably just go to RandomX and mine with your Dell laptop and power it up through your mini hydro that you found on YouTube to build. And all of a sudden, you're making decentralized electricity and you're selling it back to the grid, selling it to your neighbor, or giving it, or selling it, trading it with your neighbors, or turning it into Monero and trading that. And I only mention it because my neighbors and I literally trade Monero, and we all have our own little homestead thing going on.
You're doing it, man. You're doing it.
Literally,
I think you tried selling a tractor or something. No, a stump grinder for Monero.
Yeah,
I put two and two together.
Yeah, I did.
I'm like, wait, this guy's good.
Yeah, we decided to keep the stump grinder at this point in time.
Okay. Good thing you didn't sell it, right?
Well, no.
Good time to have a stump grinder after a hurricane. I would think.
I mean, it's a good time. Yeah, it's a good time to have a stump grinder. It was certainly better than it was 3 weeks ago. Yeah, so
that's cool that you did that, though.
Yeah. I mean, this is how this stuff. I mean, Bitcoin literally came not just out of SFL, but dude, Bitcoin happened because of SFL. Without SFL, maybe Bitcoin finds another path. Mm-hmm. But SFL creates Ross Ulbricht. Ross Ulbricht, right? Creates Silk Road. Silk Road creates user adoption. User adoption creates awareness.
Do you think we could get some Monero momentum in SFL? Why isn't everybody at LibertyCon already well aware of Monero and the differences between Monero and Bitcoin?
So Gen Z, you guys,
I spoke to a couple of people. We onboarded a bunch of people in Monero, but a lot of them just didn't know it.
Look,
when I mentioned that Bitcoin's traceable, they didn't really know it.
They didn't know. Yeah. I mean, look, we're early, and it's tough to be early. And when you feel alone in investing, you're like, am I alone? My parents think Bitcoin's wild. Bitcoin 60K. Hey, guess what, Dad? You know what I mean? Guess what, bro? You know what I mean? But when you're alone, that's what makes good investors, good speculators. There's a great book called Speculator by Doug Casey, who arguably SFL doesn't exist without Doug Casey. That's guaranteed. And Doug Casey meeting Alexander McCobbin, McCobbin and him. It's where the magic happened at. It was Pork or it was Freedom. I think it was Freedom Fest. And there was two guys. Doug had his friend with him, and his friend's a big name. Everyone knows his name. And I asked him, I was like, why were you some of the first money in SFL? Because you made this happen. Because you made Liberty House happen. The deposit on that place and everything. And he was like, I walked up to the booth, and the aroma of cannabis was such that I thought, let's throw some money at these kids and see what happens.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah. So, but I mean, yeah. So I mean, the question there, crypto's happening now, right? It's happening, but it's in winter. No one likes things when they're going down. This is great for us, though. I mean, this is great. Kind of $5,000 Bitcoin. Anyway, let's go. Yeah. This is great, right? This is where it's made. But you got to go out. You got to create value for people. You got to make money right now. You got to find a way. And there's a recession coming. There's probably a depression coming, and it might even be more than that. If you're in Germany, it's not a depression. It's societal collapse. That's what's going to happen. Here's Germany with electricity. Here's Germany a year later without electricity. How many BMWs are they going to make?
Yeah, Tony was talking about prices of utilities in Europe, right? Through the roof.
What's up with that?
Yes. So in Germany, last year in October, I think they were paying €80 per megawatt. Okay. And this year, it's close to 600. In France, last year in October, it was about the same, 80 to 90 euro per megawatt. This year, it's close to 1,100 euro. So
it's hyperinflation.
Yes.
It's hyperinflation. Yeah.
And the thing is, when these things happen, and you talked about electricity, when these things happen, people can't mine as much Monero anymore. Right. So it's a problem. It is a big problem. And that's why, you talked about building your own electricity. And with that, you can mine your own Monero.
Yeah.
And make that a possibility.
I mean, electricity or energy is the base layer of all things. I mean, you imagine for a thought experiment, we make the cost of electricity a zero just for fun. It's zero.
That is fun.
We can do anything. We can desalinate water right here in the river. We can pump it to Arizona. We can grow crops in Arizona. We can move goods from this way to that way. We can do anything. If the cost of electricity or energy is essentially zero, I mean, you guys want to just fly around a G5 like all night? Just like let's go get some good food. Like, let's go get some real Cuban food, you know, like whatever, you know, like the human thirst for energy is unlimited. We have unlimited thirst for human energy.
And luckily there's an unlimited amount of energy in the universe. We're just,
we just have
just
to
now
access
figuring
it.
out how to tap into
access
it.
It. And like back in the early days of SFL, the idea was Julian Simon's concept of the ultimate resource is the human mind. Right now, the culture doesn't believe that more human minds is a good thing. We think that less people is a better thing because we've got this woke environmentalism going on, which is really just authoritarianism wrapped up in some sheep's clothing. And it's going to, I mean, we're going to see people die from the policies that are happening here. And there's not much we can do about it. But as individuals, there's a lot we can do about it. But the ultimate resource is the human mind. The only thing that gives value to anything objectively is the human mind. So we have to apply human minds from taking in content and just scrolling aimlessly and mindlessly to apply your mind and your ideas and your network and your resources, no matter what you, I mean, Jesus had 12 guys and one guy was a schmuck. I mean, you don't need a team, you know, like you got 11 guys and they're badass. Like you got everything you need. And I mean, McCoben had like 6. I mean, that was all he needed. And this organization is 164,000 students throughout the world doing things in Africa, India. They're everywhere. I mean, Europe, they're everywhere. You know, several billionaires donate to this organization every year. Like, you know, they got attention. And so you have to apply and we have to solve these problems. I think we're at the spot where the problems aren't big enough. They're big, but they're not big enough. Give it 12 to 18 months. And like these things are going to be huge. There's going to be major problems and people are going to get to the grindstone. Like when times get hard, tough get going.
CBDs, digital IDs. I got to ask you, I just want to know what you think. Bitcoin. Do you think, you know, because we talk about a lot, like Bitcoin's a surveillance coin. Do you think there is some potential for Bitcoin to essentially be truly co-opted by governments and effectively become like the CBDC?
Yeah, so I always wondered if Bitcoin was kind of this underlying, like we were in Washington D.C. when Bitcoin started to circulate around, and I've had friends that have always been like, "Yo, it's the CIA, bro." Like, you think that this is this easy? And you know, SFLers would be like, "Dude, where do you think it's popping right now? Is it in San Francisco yet? Why is it not in San Francisco? It's in D.C. Why is it in D.C.?" And so, you know, there was that. And yeah, it's fully traceable. At the time, we didn't think it was traceable, right? We were like, oh, we don't know how blockchain works. It just sounds awesome. They can't print money. And we were like, I was really upset. I found sound money in the Austrian school of thought and Hayek and Mises. And I was like, they can't just print money when they want to. This is messed up. And we didn't know they were going to do that until 2009. And then they printed $1 trillion. And we were like, what?
Like, why force people to use CBDCs if you just get them to opt into a CBDC?
Right. Now the thing is, the pro of that would be, okay, well, it's supply constraint, right? Theoretically, if they don't, but if they allow fractional lending on it, now it's not supply constraint because we can have artificial Bitcoin. You know, we can do this with we can have artificial anything. We have more shares of, you know, the SLV, the silver, you know, commodity index than there are actual physical ounces of silver backing up the SLV that JP Morgan runs. So a lot of people are like, yo, big speculation there. Hint, hint, check out silver. But like, until these things just snap, and you have these breaking points of insolvency and liquidity crises, you don't really know. You don't really see it. So, I mean, it is, but it extends the olive branch to the state actors and says, look, we're giving up something in exchange for something. We just want a fixed supply of money or a limited supply of money so that the base unit of entrepreneurship and economics makes sense. Because like energy, money is that to an economy. Money is that base unit of, am I creating value or destroying value based on the scorecard? How am I winning in the game? I'm out there creating value for other people, trying to capture some of that value for me. And there's times where I'm destroying value and money lets me know, hey, bro, you're going broke. And you keep doing this, you're going to be broke. And so, but if money just is one of these things where the elites get to print it and then they get to spend it first and then the poor gets stuffed, then we're creating this have and have not society where you're at a restaurant, you've got people serving you, they're wearing masks. And I'm like, sorry, I can't be served. Like, I'm not royalty here. Like, I'm not talking to you from a golden crown, you know, like sit at my table and eat with me, take your mask. You know, I'm just like, I didn't grow up in that family. Like, I'm just not of that class, you know, or like middle-class chuds is what, you know, where I come from. And And so, yeah, it's an issue, but it's an olive branch. I don't think that they'll take it, but it does kind of allow the state of Florida or the IRS to be like, oh, well, this is kind of okay. It's sort of okay. It's an olive branch, but hey, at the end of it, there's Monero. Monero is the lifeboat on the lifeboat. Monero is your helicopter on the lifeboat. If it's an absolute they're taxing this thing at 95%. They took the gold in 33. They're gonna take the Oh, they can't take my Bitcoin, man. And it's like a lot of my SFL buddies are, they still they can't take my Bitcoin, man. I'm like, oh, they took Ross.
Right.
And they'll take you if they want to take you.
Yeah.
Like that's do you have enough Bitcoin? Does your plane fly faster than their plane? Yeah. Some of my buddies, them, man, maybe. Because they were there early, so yeah. But the others are like,
you can't lose your Bitcoin in a boating accident. That's
Yeah. And so, I mean, I think that there's room for. Here's what's cool about Monero. Monero is my people. Monero is my tribe. I'm trying to evangelize to expand my tribe. But if you and I want to do transactions, we're gonna interact in Monero. Other people I interact with in Silver. Other people are like dollar plebs. And that's fine. Do pleb life. We'll do pleb life. But I offer my customers now discounted last year's prices if paid in other currencies. I'll cash settle you in the pleb currency, but I need it paid in a real currency. And it just opens conversations. And very few people do it, but it opens conversations like, what do you mean they're money printing this and that? And so I think that we're on the cusp of this event. And we're all gonna be partaking. The thing about these big events is that you can't sit on the sidelines. There's no history. There's no reality that the American Revolution happens and you get to just be like, oh, well, I'm just not going to be involved. I'm going to be a voluntarist. No, not really. The British are going to knock at your door, or the T word are going to knock at your door. What we call now the founding fathers. One of these people are going to knock at your door and you're going to pick a side, boy. That's the only thing you can do. And the idea of open borders and stuff, yeah, but we're in a period of nationalism. So these are big cycles, and I don't know, we're early. We're still early.
Yeah, you can run, but you can't hide.
Feels like we've been here for a decade now, but at the same time, so yeah, it's gonna have its time. It's gonna have its time.
Tony, you want to throw some news topics out there?
Sure.
For the week, I know we don't have a proper news section, but could throw some of the major news headlines and quickly discuss.
Sure, of course. I did send.
You sent me one, right?
Yeah. But I think I have a couple in mind. Actually, I do, because I want your opinion on some from last week and one from this week.
Yeah.
So Kanye West.
I saw that.
Yeah.
He was debanked.
Good. By Chase.
Good. More.
That should be an eye opener, huh? I haven't really been following that. Is that getting a lot of traction? Are people realizing why that might be a problem?
Within the crypto space, for sure, people do realize that and have been talking about it on Twitter and other platforms. I'm not sure people outside of crypto, if they really realize what's happening and how big of a problem it is. Everybody should have access to finances. And
what was he debanked for? I don't know the story on it. Do you know what's going on with that? What was the reason?
I didn't get a chance. to read.
Just make a reason. Let's say he was black.
Whatever it may be, right?
That's what it was.
Was it because of controversy, things he said or something?
I think so.
Just go with it. We'll just go with that story.
The point is
fake news.
They picked somebody and they debanked them.
Right.
And I mean, the regime is playing with soft power, and soft power has reached its limits. So they're playing with this cancellation. Oh, we'll go for Rogan. Oops, too big. Can't go for Rogan and horse dewormers. And so the regime is playing with these concepts. And as they do this, they are forcing Caesar-like moments. And so what occurs here in the late Roman Empire is you've got a guy that comes from nobility. He's a widower. He wants to be left alone. And the people at the time were like, let's go for this guy. We need to uproot him from our society. And they kind of forced Caesar to build his own guard, posse up with his boys, the whole thing. And then he just becomes successful at conquest. He's just good. And so because he's good, eventually he conquers his enemies. He crosses the Rubicon, and then he burns the box of letters. That's just kind of the downfall of Caesar, but also the first Jesus character 20 years before Jesus, where he's like, no, sins are forgiven, man. You're all my people now. We've won. There's no enemies. We're all one now. And he burns it. Well, eventually he gets backstabbed. He dies. but his family rules Rome for 100 years. Rome gets 150 years out of, they were already in decline. They never returned to their peak of greatness, but Caesar buys them 100 years. And so America is entering into the age of the Caesars, in my opinion. When you see them raid Mar-a-Lago, you see them, we're going to get to a spot where political violence is going to be a normal and boring thing. It's going to be the first thing that's like, because now people are like, oh, there's a food shortage, whatever. Oh, there's this crisis, whatever. Oh, there's bird flu, whatever. Like, no one cares. Oh, my goodness, there's a political character just got assassinated. Whoa, this is interesting. We haven't had this in a while.
Right.
This is juicy, right? It's going to get boring. It's like it's going to be so abundant.
Yeah, that's the terrifying part is that people just go along with it and accept.
Yeah, but as their currency's imploding, as the mothers can't afford to feed their children, as the farmers can't afford to go to market next year because they got wiped on cattle the last year, as we're in possibly global cooling, maybe a 10-year period of droughtish, we're in some weird cycles, like we're just on some big cycles. I mean, we're seeing lakes or rivers in Germany at like all-time lows, or not all-time lows, but the hunger stones are starting to rise. 500-year stones are starting to pop out of the water. And that's creepy, man. Like some kid writes on a stone and puts it there, and 500 years later, you're like, whoa, there's a hunger stone here. And when you see me cry, dude, they're writing this on the walls of the riverbank and the stone, etching that in, and it's been covered for 500 years because there's been water. Oh, it must be climate crisis, man, or there's cycles, right? So, oh, well, we need more communism. But the thing is this is going to force people to grow food. This is going to force people to make energy. This is going to force people to love each other and serve each other for their own needs. And it's going to force people to become more tribal. And Monero is my tribe, and it's expanding. And I want access to this tribe. If I want access to a guy I've never met, but is a hero of mine, Matt Smith. He is the interview guy on Doug Casey's Take, my favorite YouTube show of all time. Doug Casey is all his books. He's the Ayn Rand of our time, in my opinion. I never had a chance to meet him yet. And I want to meet Matt because Matt takes Doug and he's like, come on, Doug, let's create some value, even though you're super rich, and let's just do this while you're alive. Let's create this. And he's doing it. I would love to interact with Matt Smith. I could have an interaction with Matt Smith if I can ever create value for him in the future, having some Monero, because I know that he's going to take it because he knows, and so just
maybe Kanye's ready to take some Monero too, right?
Well, so we're forcing guys.
Kanye, if you're listening, you cannot be deplatformed from Monero.
Here's what Kanye needs to go get his boy Will Smith, get him out of the beta club. Will, come on over. Come over. Let's get red pilled. Let's go. Start hanging out with Andrew Tate, who's also got debanked, and let's rock Monero.
Yeah, what are they waiting for?
They're trying to assess their options, and when they get to what do we have, electricity, to Monero. There are certain things that are currency. Like in some communities, cannabis is currency. I see people all the time in some communities where they trade it around as oh, hey, man, thanks for helping me with my house thing. Here's a dime or whatever it is, and it's okay, fine. They're trading a commodity. I'm fine with that.
You know what's interesting? Because you mentioned the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
If you look up on eBay, Roman Empire coins.
Yeah, they're valueless. It's wild.
Cents.
Yeah, pennies.
Yeah. Because they had so much of it that they're worthless. They're worth nothing.
Even now, people are like, no, they're not collector's piece. It's wild, right? Yeah. It's wild. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm just I'm bearish in the short term, but long term, this is, dude. And you guys are just cutting the way.
We're trying, man. We're
really
trying.
You are
motivated by liberty for sure.
I mean, look, they're gonna force people like Kanye to figure out solutions. Kanye has a big audience. Even if they're playing with they're playing with the limits of soft power. Oh, we're gonna cancel you. Oh, we're gonna debank you. Oh, look, if you're gonna do Stalin stuff, you gotta do Stalin stuff. And if you don't have the juice, you don't have the juice. And I don't think the current regime has the juice. We're going to find out. But there's an actual Stalin number of, we want to get these dissidents to obey. There's a number that you're going to have to take to the chopping block. Are you willing to do it? We'll find out. I don't think that they have the guts.
Tony, any other news this week? Any other stories you want to bring up?
I actually want to bring from last week two things. One, we talked about governments potentially adopting Bitcoin first before finding Monero. So we had a news article on October 4th, and it talked about a minister of finance from Russia, and they wanted to accept Bitcoin payments for international trade.
Yeah.
The Bank of Russia didn't want that. they talked about the digital ruble and how they want to implement that.
Mm-hmm.
So the Minister of Finance wanted that, but the bank didn't. And so it's a very interesting contrast between the politicians and the banks, at least in Russia. And 2 days later, Europe responded, and they banned all Russian wallets.
Oh wow!
Yes, I mean essentially, if you're flagged if you're sending Bitcoin as a Russian, your account gets flagged, which you can't do with Monero.
Tough to be Russian these days.
It is tough, actually.
Super tough.
Super tough.
Yeah.
I met a guy a month ago, and he was hitchhiking, so I took him in the car, and he said, "I'm from Russia. I've been hitchhiking for the past 5 years. I don't have a job, and actually now it's hard to get a job, and it's also hard to hitchhike to different countries because they don't accept me just because he has a Russian passport." And he didn't do anything. He wasn't.
No. It's just his regime is doing something that he has no influence. He's just a normal citizen. He has no influence over anything. Yeah, that's just the guy. I mean, the Russians are. I mean, we're treating them like we treated the Jews in World War II. I mean, but never count the Russians out. I would never count the Russian people out whatsoever. Like, I mean, no, that is a strong culture.
It is a strong, and they have a strong also sense of
pride. Yeah, the Russian people are amazing. They're absolutely incredible. I mean, I think it's exciting times. We are very, very early still. Web3 is very interesting. We didn't get a chance to hit on it too much. Maybe Urbit, maybe we'll talk about it at some point. I just see guys working on this Web3 thing, and it's like, what assets do you own? If I build a brand, like you guys have worked real hard on this YouTube channel, and it got canceled. Well, okay, do you have an email list backup? And we should put a link, get an email list backup, right? So, all right, we have that, but then what do? We have our own server. Do we go where the eyeballs are? Do we bring the eyeballs here? And I think that in Web3, we're just going to have our own space. We're going to bring it with us from interaction to interaction. I don't think we're going to be on Facebook servers and then Amazon servers, which is probably the same servers, and then Instagram or Twitter. Or I think that we're just going to be like, oh, here's my photos, here's my content, here's the articles I publish, here's my videos, here's the link to my stuff, and we're just going to interact. The one platform I see, not even platform because it's decentralized, I see doing this, and a lot of the early SFLers. That's why I mention it, just because like they'll be watching like. They're messing with Urbit. That's urbit.org. You can read about it there. Urbit.live. You can kind of buy part of it. You buy your coins. You have to use crypto because it's a crypto solution. But essentially, it's a land grab on a new way to do computing power. I mean, Moldberg, Curtis Yarvin created this like 15 years ago. Peter Thiel is his first backer. He backed Facebook. They just had a conference here 2 weeks ago in Miami. I think big things are coming for Urbit, but to your hitchhiker friend there, I see an avenue where as the rules of soft power cancel, what are they going to do? They're going to cancel until they arrest. People are going to go, I need to own my content. I need to own my data. You can do it now, but you got to do it with USBs and flash drives and not Dropbox. You have to build your own Dropbox. So I think that we're going to move to that. And then likewise, I got to hold my own currency. If I'm a Canadian trucker, I got to hold my own currency, man. And then what we're doing, I mean, this is the revolutionary part that's really dangerous. We're forcing unemployed Canadian truckers to go to their friend's house, live on their couch because their truck got repossessed, and plot and plan and try to consider like what will their next moves be. This is dangerous because, like I said earlier, if you get 3% of a population and 20% of them are willing to fund it, and it might not be violent in our case in this period of history. It might, but it might not be. It might just be a movement to crypto. 3% of the people move to crypto and just say, no, I'm interacting in crypto. And 20% go, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of okay with that. Well, at that point in time, you have a revolution. So
tipping point.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think we should wrap it up here. Just play the price report, and then we can get back to actually just interacting with people at the conference. This was awesome, man. Yeah. So glad we ran into you, man.
So good to see you.
Travis.
Yeah. wealth of knowledge. I'll definitely be checking out your channel more and putting it out there for other people to find it.
Thank you.
And hope to see you at Monerotopia as well.
I'm going to be there. That's going to be in the spring next year. I'm sure you'll keep us abreast of that. But and then I mean, we'll probably talk offline on this, but like I think it'd be cool to start getting your community. I know Doug Casey started a file on file.co, which just starts with a PH spelled file, but it's kind of like moving from the Discord to like a little bit better of a solution. Not quite Urbit, but like a better solution. Urbit's still clunky, but I think I want to meet the Monero tribe. This is why I connect. This is why I try to get in the comments. I want to interact. So,
Hello. Did we get Doug Casey? I mean, has Doug Casey mentioned Monero at all or spoken about?
He's aware. Oh yeah. Okay. Matt and him have talked about Monero several times.
Okay.
So he's very aware of Monero, and I would say probably definitely owns the Monero.
Oh,
certainly
cool.
An early Bitcoin guy.
Very cool.
Yeah. So
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Yeah, we'll finish up with the price report so people can see what's going on with that. I have no idea what's going on. I think Bitcoin obviously still in the doldrums, right? It's hovering around like 19K. I don't. What's you have any price predictions, or do you talk price? You're just hoping for it to go down so you can snag some more.
The great financial crisis in crypto right now is happening, and it's happening in a free market manner. So I'm totally cool with this. Guys are getting liquidated, took on too much leverage. Turns out high interest rates are bad for guys that are too leveraged. So possibly 10K Bitcoin 11K Bitcoin seems to be a thing.
Oh wow,
I think it could.
But I feel like everybody's hoping for that, right?
It doesn't happen,
never
right?
comes, right?
Unless you put it out there in the general consciousness, and it just happens, right? So I think we're going to see a liquidity crisis next. People are going to jump to dollars, sell what they got for dollars. I'm noticing guys buying silver, selling Bitcoin right now. I'm like, ooh, really? You want to do that? Okay. All right. So I think that we're going to see a leg lower, 10, 12, 11-ish. We're going to see the weak hands get liquidated, and then we'll continue the ascent from there. This thing started at an SFL conference, but it was $3 at an SFL conference. Even at $5,000, it's doing amazing, right? So as far as Monero, hopefully it pulls Monero down. I know people don't want to hear this, but hopefully it pulls Monero down.
I'm of the same heart.
I need to stack bags.
Opportunity to stack. Yeah,
I gotta stock bags, guys. Like I don't need. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
All right. I guess.
Truly appreciate it, man. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, stick around. I mean, we can
we'll jump on the price report. I think we'll
just wrap it up after that. So the price report is like 10 minutes.
It's weird that we're still pricing in dollars, but fine. I mean, one Monero is one Monero. I guess one Monero is a year of hash power on a regular computer about. So
there you go.
That's kind of, at least that's what my buddy claims he's getting. He's got a pretty hopped up unit, but he's like, I'm getting like 0.8 of a Monero a year right now. And I'm like, all right, so.
We onboarded already a decent amount, right? For the time that we spent doing it. Once we get up, it's just the bottleneck is talking to people, right? Because like it takes 20 minutes to onboard a person because you're literally going from zero to Monero, and
waiting for them to download.
I just have to say on Monerotopia, because he'll never admit this, but I got the video on one of my videos. Max Kaiser was a fan.
Yes, that's how I came across you. Yeah, I saw our video on your
Max Kaiser knows.
Yeah, that was back in the day.
He knows. And
but now he like talks shit about it.
Yeah, but you know what? He also had the silver movement, kind of gave up on it. But Max, like, come on back, bro. Like you know what I mean? Like Max is, I love Max. He puts out a lot of good ideas, but he knows at the end of the day.
Max Coin, that wasn't really.
but at the end of the day, like fungibility matters. It matters. That's what makes gold good.
He gets it. He
gets it. He understands. He's just got to push something.
He holds Monero.
So, yeah.
All right, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Let's put on the price report. The Monerotopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Local Monero. Avoid using KYC exchanges. Buy and sell Monero directly for fiat, peer-to-peer.
Hello everybody, I hope everybody's rocking as usual. I come back to you with weekly report number 40, and this report in my opinion is going to be epic, and you don't want to miss it because I'm going to discuss some key parameters that may be pertaining to our economy and pertaining to you today. So please stick till the very end of this video. So as we all know, inflation is something that eats away at our standard of living that we are so used to. That is, our income doesn't keep pace with the rising prices, then the cost of living increases over time. So a high inflation rate can hurt the economy. And having said that, I just want to visit this meme. This guy gets a 3% raise, but the inflation keeps increasing to 8.5%. And on the right, what you see is a ship representing the high inflation. And what does the Fed do to bring it down? It increases the interest rates. Here in this example, 0.25% basis points. But it cannot do too much. So inflation has kind of become a cancer in our economy. It started in one area of the economy and then it's now spreading rapidly, infecting other areas of the economy. And it's hard to bring the inflation down in certain areas of economy, such as probably rent or haircut or even food. It might come down, but it's quite hard. And having said that, I want to discuss a number of parameters. Very first is the consumer price inflation. I'm just going to present how it is calculated and why it is important. A projection of the US debt. So if I were to say, hey, the debt was about $10 billion in Obama times back in 2011. Today it stands at $30 trillion in 2022. What is the projection for, let's say, 2025? And that will probably shock most of you. And Gareth Soloway, a renowned technical trader, came out with this. I quote, Bitcoin to 3,500. Again, well, we're just going to take a visit at that if this is a possibility. And talking about the CPI, so I think some of you might know this and some of you may not, but just to touching, the CPI measures the rate of inflation in an economy, which is probably one of the greatest threats to a healthy economy. In fact, this week, just a few days back, it was announced that the CPI came in hotter than expected, where the CPI increased by 0.4%. And what happened? Markets took a hit. So I'll just try to break down in simple words what it all means and why it is important. Because CPI measures a range of consumer spending behaviors. And having said that, I want to just visit this small case study that I found. So in this, it depicts in this table the consumers in the economy spending a percentage of their wealth on food, fuel, clothes, and education for each of the years 2015 and 2019. So it's just a percentage breakdown of how they spend it. So what CPI really measures is how much the consumer spending increased or decreased between the 2 years. So 2015 is the base year and 2019 is the target year. So we want to find out how the consumer pricing index has changed between the 2 years. So it's very simple. All we do is just take a weighted average of 2015 numbers, just multiply, add, and divide these numbers. And the same thing we do with 2019, the two columns that are highlighted. So we get two numbers. For the base year, we had the average spending was about $43, and for the given year, in this case 2019, the average spending is $48. So how do we measure CPI? Very simple. Just divide this number by this number and multiply by 100. So in a crux, what this means is between 2015 and 19, the average price the consumer spent in the economy increased by 13.14%. And that is as simple as it is. So having said that, now that you know what CPI is, I just want to dive into the charts quickly. So you would see the CPI increased by 0.4% in the last, now it was announced last 1 month. And this is concerning because that means we as consumers are spending more of our wealth when we are actually producing only so much while we are spending more. And at the same time, since the CPI is measuring the rate of inflation, not the inflation itself, but the rate of inflation, as this is a CPI, inflation has actually come down in the last few months. However, this is not enough because the Fed has been increasing interest rates incessantly. It's increased. Now the interest rate is about 4.5%. They want to go, now it's like 4%. They want to go like 5 or 5.5%, which is not really bringing down the inflation as fast. But the CPI keeps increasing, and that's a concern because Increase in CPI will take a hit on the markets and the confidence and reduce consumer spending. And what does is basically bring down the stock markets as well. And I just want to touch upon a little bit about the US debt, where we stand in that. 1971 is when the US went off the gold standard. And that time the US national debt was about 300 billion or dollars. Today, we stand about $30 trillion. In the Obama times in 2011, just 10 years back, we stood about $11 trillion. So you see how much has come up. And this is the logarithmic scale that I've plotted. And if I were to just project this, just for fun for our viewers, how much longer will it take for us to get to 50 trillion US dollars? So just a conservative projection. There you go, 50 trillion. So what does that mean? Well, in another 4 years, not 10 years, another 4 years, 3 to 4 years, we are already there in 50 trillion. And this is rather, very conservative. The way it is going, it's crazy. So I want to dive into the, these three things, the debt, the CPI, and the inflation is like what the economists and the Fed sees to, see how the economy works and what they can do with it to fix it. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem fixable. And having said that, I just want to get into the crypto charts. Last time I touched upon, if you saw the last video from this channel, is that this period of volatility is similar to a couple of periods of volatility in the past, as you can see. So anything can happen. Well, moving on to the total crypto cap, you see that we are sticking around $880 billion, which is pretty much the same as the 2017 bull market tops. And talking about the BTC USD chart, I have drawn some regression bands for the history of bull bear cycles we have seen in Bitcoin. Here we see a draw from the top to the bottom of this bull bear cycle, and you see this pattern, and right now we are consolidating in this zone I marked as A. And here in this zone, Bitcoin trends in this $19,000, not doing too much activity. RSI is super low, relative strength index. It's actually very, very stable, not seen in the history of Bitcoin this way. And if you see like the past, the 2017-18 bear cycle, again drawing the regression bands, which is nothing but the standard deviation between the two bands. Again, Bitcoin dropped from 6,000 to 3,000 and staying in this zone with low RSI, and same thing in the past, 2015. Bitcoin dropped from $300 to $150, and then it stuck to this low RSI range. In fact, it was a little high at that time, but all I want to show is like this is the low volatile range that we have. And what is a stark contrast this time is for Bitcoin to drop from 20,000 to 10,000 into this band marked B is going to be quite hard. In fact, in my opinion, people will be ready to sell their kidneys to get into Bitcoin, pun intended. But zone A remains as my sweet spot. What Garrett Soloway said about 3,500 Bitcoin is the super black swan event, which probably happens once in a century, where Bitcoin goes to $3,500, where it's like a .com 2001 crash, which seems unlikely at the moment. But this is what I can say, either a spike towards $30,000 or a breakdown into the B zone. But either which way, 20,000 is my sweet spot. That is all from me in this report. I hope you have enjoyed it. I have enjoyed it thoroughly, presenting this for the last 1 year consistently. And next week, I'm going to present my final price report. I hope you can stick out for that one. And I want to wish you a great week ahead. Ciao.
Thank you for joining us on this week's Monerotopia episode. We stream live shows every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. You can find and subscribe to our show on YouTube and Odyssey, or listen to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or Stitcher. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or join us in the Monerotopia Telegram group. See you all next week.